This is In Between with Peter Posen. Today we're going to be talking about ancient city planning. In the Greek cities and in the Roman cities, they were laid out in an orthogonal design. This was a grid of streets going north, south, east, and west. Each section was a square or a rectangle pattern. Now, the person who designed this type of city planning was an architect in the 5th century BC named Hippodamus. Now, Hippodamus was the one who came up with the street patterns. And so you see on these drawings which I made, you see 3 main streets that run parallel. These are called cardia. Some of you doctors out there will know cardia means heart. And these were the heart of the city. And so the streets went off from this main cardia. And you had the main cardia, the larger one, and then you had 2 lesser cardia, all running parallel. And this was the Greek pattern of how they would do these cities. Now, in between the cardias, you had all series of called insula. The insulas, which means island in Latin, were basically these neighborhoods which came up as people started off with just a courtyard and a few houses. And then as more people were born into the gen, a gen is a family unit that's by blood. And so the gens or families expanded their houses, and then they became walled in with just like one gate coming into their courtyard and the multitude of buildings that you see here. Now, the Latin word cardo comes from the Greek word, and cardo has a meaning in Latin, a hinge. So everything hinges on this main streets. And with the Roman structure of the city planning, which was also following the Greek, it would be a north, south, east, west square. The Romans liked to build things in squares. And as you see in the camps down below Masada, the Romans would make their camps in a square with the 2 intersecting roads. You had a north-south, east-west road. The north road going north and south was called the Codo Maximus. And the Decumanus Maximus was the east-west road. So after the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD, the 10th Roman Legion built a camp on the west hill near the ruins of King Herod's palace. This area today is called the Armenian Quarter. And the reason why they built in this area is because Herod had made an aqueduct. It was called the Upper Aqueduct, and it brought waters to his swimming pools and fountains, which he had in this very elaborate palace. So for the next 60 years, the 10th Roman Legion, they built their own camp, and they would build a wall around it like you see at Masada. And then to the north of their camp, they started building a colony, a Roman city. And in 130 AD, the Emperor Herodian came, and he saw the construction, and it wasn't going along as well as he thought it would be. So he released imperial funds for a full-scale building project. He wanted to build a pagan city called Aelina Capitolina. Now, Aelinius was his family name, and so he was naming it after his family, Aelina. And Capitolina was a cult, a Roman worship cult which worshiped Juno, Jupiter, and Minerva. And so he started a series of building temples in this Roman colony here, and that set off the revolt of the Jews that lived in the area, and that was in 132, the Bar Kokhba revolt. There was major construction into the old city, and they extended the Cardo Maximus past the Roman camp. Of course, the Roman camp was demolished, and a new insula, a series of insulas were built in its place. And so you now had the Church of Nia, which was the brand new church. That's what Nia means, new. And so from the Damascus Gate to the Church of Nia, and then across the square on Mount Zion was the Church of the Apostles. And now you have Mount Zion, as you see in the map there, inside of the city walls. So starting here in the north is the Damascus Gate, called by the Romans Porta Neopoliana, which basically means New City Gate. It's also called the Nablus Gate today. Neapolis, Nablus, is in the north of here. Now, the 16th century gate was built on top of the Roman gate from the 2nd century. And down here is the Roman gate, and we have a museum called the City Gate Museum. Another name for the Damascus Gate in the early Arabic period was called the column or the pillar gate. Here's a sketch of the gate we see today, and there's a sketch of what they believed it looked like back in the 2nd century. And you see the pillar with the emperor on top there. This is called a bent axle gate. You go into the city and you zigzag your way into the interior. And so this would have been the plaza inside of the gate with the column or the pillar. Below us, 3 meters below us, would have been the original market. Here we have some of the stalls where the merchants would sell their wares. And here's the actual pavement stones of that half circle plaza as you entered into the city with the pillar in the center. This is a mosaic replica of the Madaba map. The Madaba was a church in Transjordan, and they had this on the floor of the church, 6th century, and it was kind of like a tourist map. Here you see in the Greek written on the side, giving you an idea of all the sights you can see when you go to Jerusalem. You see the Cardo Maximus in the middle, the large one, and then north of that, to the east of that, above it, you see the Cardo, the lesser Cardo. And this is the Damascus Gate, and you see the pillar without the statue there in the square. And then on the southern side of the city, you see the Church Nia, the new church. And next to that is the Church of the Apostles, which was once outside of the city wall, but is now included into the city. And here we have on this particular map, halfway between is the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Pilgrims would start their pilgrimage there and go to the Church of the Apostles, and then after that, the Nia Church. Here in this particular drawing, you see the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is a little bit to the north, and the Decomaxius Road, which cuts it east and west, is more in the middle. So we're going to start our tour here. Of course, the ancient road is about 3 meters below us, but this would have been the plaza inside the gate. And as we coming up to here, you see these two ladies walking up the stairs. That would have been where the pillar with the statue of the emperor would have been. So passing the pillar or the column, we come to the fork in the road. And so to the left would have been the lesser Cardo heading towards the western wall of today. And to the right, you would have had the Cardo Maximus, the large street. So this street separates the Christian quarter on the right from the left, which is the Muslim quarter. Now you see that little tractor trying to go up the street, where the old street was actually 5 meters or 16 feet wide, so you could have chariots and wagons going up and down either way. And it was open all the way to the very end. It's not open all the way to the end today. We have sections that are actually roof. Now the roof section with the center seat was 22 meters or 40 feet wide. Now these little portals give a little light and air to the covered shuk. The shuk is the Arab market of today. Now this is the crossroads. You have to the north the Damascus Gate, and then to the west the Jaffa Gate. Now the Jaffa Gate faces towards the west, towards the port of Jaffa on the Mediterranean. Well known in Greek mythology, Jaffa. Jaffa means beautiful. And so as you enter into the city, you go through a postern gate, which you make a turn, either right or left. And this is the street that goes east and west, and on the left side you have the Christian quarter, and on the right side you have the Armenian quarter. Now down here at the crossroads you have the four quarters of the city meet, and so if you go to the right you get to the Jewish quarter. Now this street separates the Jewish quarter from the Armenian quarter. These are some of the pillars at street level from the 6th century. And right below these new tiles are the actual ancient tiles of the street. Here we see the actual street that was used in the 6th century. Here's a artist's rendition here. You got tourists walking around and people buying things. There are the stalls where the merchants sell their wares, and a mosaic artist depicting what life was like on the Cardo back in the 6th century. You had people working, you got people playing instruments, and you got people selling linens. Now the wood rafters are no longer there. That would support the tile roof, the Roman tile roof, which would keep you dry in the rainy season and the sun out of your eyes in the summer. And these were the capitals that were on top of the pillars, and would support the wood rafting, and which you would have the tile roof on. And these were some of the stalls where the merchants would sell things. Not far from here is the Church of Nia on the other side of the modern-day Jewish parking lot. This was built by the Emperor Justinian back in 543, and it was destroyed by the Persian invasion in 614. It was 100 meters by 52 meters, very large, largest church at that time. Very thick walls, as you can see. That's to support all this weight, and these extremely large pillars also for support. Now Zion is outside of the city of today. There's the city wall, and that was where the Apostles' Church was. And so we end here the tour in the south, near the Zion Gate, where you have the Dormition Abbey, which was built above the Church of the Apostles here on Mount Zion. And so this is the end of our segment on ancient city planning. This is Peter Posen for In Between.